So I'm just going to go over that again. So when you fill in that contact form here, right, we want to make sure that when somebody submits that as a test, that it redirects to a URL. And that really there is the important part of the page, right? Because it's Google Analytics tracks that as the success for everything we're doing, right? So I know that some of you sent through homework and you had put, does your website redirect to a thank you page? You had put yes, but when I went and checked your websites, they don't. So I just wanted to make sure that it's exactly clear that that is what we need it to do. And this part is so important because it is the foundation of all of the tracking that we need going forward and measuring of our success. So to kind of come back to that, what we're going to cover this week is we're going to cover the different marketing channels and which ones kind of would be better for your company, referral programs, kind of email marketing stuff. But as I've just kind of highlighted in just reinforcing that thank you page, we always start with a big thank you because it's that measuring of when we get redirected to the thank you page, which means we can track stuff. So this is a screenshot of Google Analytics for one of our clients. It's a little bit old now, but the data kind of holds. But you can segment the data as to the channels that are driving traffic to your site. So for instance, this client, what we're tracking is how many contact films are filled in, and the organic traffic is driving the volume of the traffic, but actually it's driving a massive amount of inquiries. So for this customer, his search engine optimization is working fantastically well. One, because it's got high conversion rate, but actually it's producing over half of his total inquiries. So we know that his search engine optimization is working really well. Second on the list is his paid advertising, and that's his advertising on Google. And that's got not as high a conversion rate, but it's still doing over 100 inquiries for him in this period. So it's a really good, valuable thing. Direct is people coming straight to the website, and referral is people kind of coming from other websites and other sources into your site. And that's quite good. The social, they've done quite a lot of effort on their social, and the social has a really high conversion rate, but actually it's a really low volume of people coming to the website. So even though they've put a lot of effort into that over the year, we can kind of sit back and go, well, if you've put in, hundreds of man hours of generating social media content, is it worthwhile for the 20 inquiries that have come through to you in that time? And really it comes back to that thank you page. With the thank you page in place, we can kind of measure that going forwards. Okay. You can also kind of in there understand which are your best channels, and you can test and measure which has the best bounce rate and the conversion rate. So a bounce rate would be if someone goes to a web page and leaves, that's because they've only looked at one page of the website. Now, it could be that your website has content on there which is only really needs one page to look at, but it's an indicator that if people are looking at one page and leaving, that your content is not compelling enough. So actually you can look at the bounce rate by channel, you can look at the conversion rate by channel, and you can look at the goals. So we can see that for this customer, he's got a fantastic paid search, but the paid search is costing him quite a lot of money. He's got a great search engine optimization on his organic, but actually the email marketing has produced a lot of business for him with a low investment and not a lot of effort. So really for him, his email marketing for this customer has produced his best results because it's been the cheapest and his smallest investment, right? And that's coming from there, from that tracking of the thank you page. So now what we want to look at is kind of trying to understand the different channels, whether it's Google and the search, and how you compare that to social media. And obviously the two biggest are Google versus Facebook. So Google really services people who have an immediate need. So that's people that are going on to the internet and they want to find out some information or they want to buy something, right? So really Google is the best place to get to your customers because they're at the right point of the buying cycle, depending on what search terms they are using. Their search terms can indicate their intent, right? So if, for instance, if they put how much is this or where can I buy this, you know that they want to purchase straight away. So Google is great for getting people as an immediate need, whereas Facebook is more of a social proof platform. Really, you can't target people by what they're searching for. You can kind of start a communication with people and try and get other people to recommend you on social media platforms. But really, when you're targeting on social media platforms, you're kind of putting a net out there and going, I don't know this person's intent. I don't know what they're going to be doing, but I know that our client is 25 to 30 years old, is a female, they live in the 25-mile radius of this, you know, they might be engaged. And you can be really specific about their social profile. And that's where the first week understanding your customer avatar becomes really important. Because if you understand your customer avatar, that's where you can help target those people on your social media channels more closely. Okay. So Google and its instant need leads to instant sales and leads straight away. As a prime example, Ed, could you wave please at the camera? Ed went live with a shiny new website 7 days ago, and his previous website was ugly, probably the best way to describe it, Ed. But he's had 5 inquiries already, whereas his previous website gave him nothing. And simply by just making his website presentable, and people are now finding him with an instant need and inquiring on the website. And we kind of had a look today, and that's coming from Google straight away. And those people have a high intent. I think in the 8 days, Ed has already converted some of those customers into some of those inquiries into paying customers already. And that's because they've got a high intent.
At this rate, I'm going to have to double my staff.
That's a good sign, Ed. Thank you for that. And then on the other side of it, you've got kind of Facebook, which is more about social proof, getting into conversation with your audience, building brand awareness, growing your audience. So kind of getting your message out there to kind of build a tribe almost of people that will listen to you. And also if you've got kind of innovative products. So for instance, if you've got something which people don't know about that product already, and it's new, then Google is no way to get out to them because they're not searching for your product. So if it's a new innovative product, the only way to get out there is to kind of use social media and put it in front of people that are going to match the profile of the people that you would be your buying public. So Google is obviously you're living on Google Earth, right? They may well rename it. But Google has an enormous array of stuff at its fingertips. And Google likes giving away stuff for free simply because in the control of the data, it can control better advertising. So for instance, you've obviously got Google Ads, which is its main source of revenue. Then you've got YouTube. Now YouTube is owned by Google and it is the second biggest search engine on the planet. So really, if you can be creating video content and working in your keywords into that video content, posting stuff consistently on YouTube is going to help drive more sales to your company. Google also owns Android, and basically it's on more phones than any other platform. And really Google want that because Google control the advertising and the data of what you're doing when you're on your phone. They also have Google Maps. Google Maps are brilliant, and Google Earth, and Google want that information because if they know where you are at any individual time, Google can target you with more accurate advertising. So for instance, you know, one of a prime example for me would be if 10 years ago we were working with kind of a skip company, and really one of the biggest search terms for them was skip hire Potter's Bar, right? Now, over the years, their ranking has not dipped for Skip Hire and Potter's Bar, but because Google knows where everybody is, they don't need to put in Potter's Bar anymore. They just put in Skip Hire, right? Because Google knows where their location is, Google automatically shows them companies which are in the local vicinity, right? So Google has control of all of these things and offers all of these things, which gives them more information about your habits and what you do, so that they can deliver you more accurate advertising. Now, some people find that a bit terrifying because you've got Google Home and you've got devices around your house now which will be listening to you, right? So if you find yourself talking about wanting a new car, even though you've not searched for it, you will start seeing adverts for new cars just because you're talking about it and your Google device is listening to you. But the same is true of your Amazon devices and your Apple devices. They will all be listening to you. Now, some people find that terrifying, but at the same time, I prefer to see adverts for things that I want rather than adverts for things that I don't want. So I'm all right with it, right? So you can let these things into your life or not. But as an advertiser, for you, it's fantastic because you know that you're going to be able to target your customers more easily with your budget. So this is just an anatomy of a search page, and this is based on a desktop computer. And this is kind of the bit that you see above the fold. The fold is the bit that at the bottom of the page. So if you want to see the rest of the page, you actually need to start scrolling, right? This is just a search for a recruitment agency London, and the top section of this page is all paid advertising, right? The next section of this page is Google Maps and the My Business listing. And this is the whole of that page kind of stretched out when I've kind of spread it across the whole page. It's really long, right? So the top section is Google Ads. The next section that you've got here is the Google My Business section here. Then you've got the rich snippet. So if you've looked for a cinema time or you've looked for a job, if you've got, that's where this will appear. And that's not a paid service, that's a free service as well, right? Then when you get further down the page as well, this is where those organic listings will start appearing. So actually search engine optimization, even though it drives traffic and it is free, it might be difficult to get there, but look how far down the page you've got to go to get to it. So we've found customers that have had high search engine optimization positions over the years get less and less business from it simply because more of this other stuff on Google is displaying higher up the page. At the bottom of the page, you also get some more Google ads from pay-per-click at the bottom as well. So that kind of gives you an idea of the kind of structure. It's slightly different on a mobile phone because obviously there is less space. But actually, if you do a screen grabber when you do a search on Google, you will just see adverts and you have to scroll and scroll and scroll before you get to the organic listings. The structure is the same, but you just have further to scroll. So I do get lots of customers kind of ask me if I'm ranking high for search engine optimization in my organic rankings, why do I need to do Google ads as well? And the answer is your competitors will be doing Google ads and your competitors will be appearing at the top of the page. So even if you've got high organic rankings, Google ads will mean that you capture more of the market. So it's this balance between organic rankings and paid advertising, provided you can cope with the work. The bit that I kind of want to talk about, the in-search result. So this is basically where Google is trying to deliver answers inside the search engine itself. So you don't actually need to leave and go to the website, right? And that could be a simple question and they'll put the answer on the page. So you get the answer to your question from a website, but you don't need to leave the search engine, right? The same is true of the Google Maps listing and the job snippets and the cinema timings and things like that. Google is trying to keep you on the search engines more instead of leaving and going to people's websites, right? Now, for you, that's really important to kind of understand is that if you are in an industry where rich snippets can publish your content directly to the front page of the search engines, then that is a really powerful way of getting your content onto the search engines and it not having you cost any more money, right? Regardless of what industry you are in, Google My Business is the first thing that you should be doing for your company and optimizing that completely. And it's free. So all you need to do to kind of get your listing is go onto Google and search for Google My Business. Okay. So what we'll do in here, I mean, there is not a lot that you can do to search engine optimize your profile in here, but you need to make sure that you add all of the information that you can into your Google My Business listing, right? So a prime example would be my company name is Click Return Limited, right? But one of the keywords that I want to be found for is online marketing services, right? So I've actually renamed my company name to include the keyword that I want to be found for. And now more people that are interested in my industry are finding my Google Business listing. That's the quickest hack to Google My Business. Just simply put your keyword in your company name, okay? Then you get to add listing categories. So you can kind of say, okay, well, we do websites and pay-per-click, etc. And this one's quite important, is that your address, the format of your address, this bit here, needs to be consistent everywhere you put that on the internet, right? Because what Google will do is Google would then associate all of the different listings that you have in different places together, and it will boost your rankings, right? So you need to make sure that if you put commas in a specific place and you use ST instead of street, you need to make sure that that is what you have on your contact page on your website, in the footer of your website, on your Yell listing, everywhere where there is a directory listing that you have your company listed, you need to make sure that that is listed identically the same. That will help you as well. You can then upload logos and pictures, and you can in fact get 360 virtual tours of your business done. So you get the Google Street View. You can actually have Street View go from the street into your building. That will rankings as well. Opening hours, put your website and telephone number on there specifically. And then when to take it to the next level is you need to add posts and messages and Q&As on here, right? You'll need to unlock. But the most important of all of those is getting reviews on here. And I'll go into that into more detail as well. More reviews on here actually lend themselves onto the actual listings themselves. So if I go back up to the previous pages, so you can see that in here, the reviews show as yellow, but actually, if you get enough reviews, they will appear inside your organic listings as well. You can see on this page, there is no yellow in this section at all. So if you get enough reviews, that will make you stand out enormously from your competitors and drive an enormous amount more traffic to your site. Okay. Okay. So first of all, can you guys go onto your Google Maps listing if you have one? And I want you to go and check, does your company name contain a keyword or does it just have your company name in it? If you can just put into the chat if you've got the keyword in there, what the keyword is. If you have not got a keyword, put none, please.
Google Maps or Google My Business?
They are the same thing.
Right. Okay.
So if you search for your company, so if I just go an example and I'll search for one here. So cloud, I'm going to search for yours, Ed.
Okay.
So this is Ed's, and Ed's got his company name. It doesn't say that he is a Zoho developer.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the first change that I would make in there, Ed, which would
Drop
drive more traffic.
logo.
Yeah,
really a logo.
But that's the quickest win, that one there. Okay. So if you guys can go and check that on your own, and if no keyword in there, put none. And if there is a keyword in there, please put it into the chat. Thank you.
Sorry,
Any
can you explain
questions?
again what I'm looking for? Keywords.
So basically we're trying to work out, have you got anything that relates to what you want to be found for in your company name, right? So a prime example, if I search for another one of my clients,
it's got Lee Chapel floors.
okay.
So
if I search for another one of my clients in here,
well, we're looking at the box on the right.
Yeah, this is the maps listing, which is also under Google My Business. So you can see that his company name is that.
Guaranteed
he
rent.
wants to be found for guaranteed rent. So just by changing his company name to include the keyword, he is now going to get found for people that search for guaranteed rent. Right.
Okay.
It's the quickest hack.
Yeah, no, I haven't got anything like that.
So Judith has put none, Ellie has put none. So within your homework for this week, that's one of the quickest wins that you can do to try and help your business. And that's one that, you know, if there's nothing else that comes out of this course, just making that change will get you found more and get more traffic to your company. Yeah. Okay. So then we've got the difference between pay-per-click ads and search engine optimization. So PPC ads are the ones that kind of appear at the top. They're the adverts that appear at the top of the Google, and they're called pay-per-click because you don't pay for them when the ad appears. You only pay for them when somebody clicks on the advert and arrives at your page, right? And the way that it works is that you bid on a keyword and the searcher searches for a specific term. So let's say, you know, we're searching on a keyword that when the search term matches the keyword, and that can be either exactly or closely related, depending on how strict you are within that, Google will then display your advert on the site. Whereas what you need to do within your for search engine optimization is Google needs to find the keywords that you want to be found for on your website, right? You will be surprised how many people come to me and say, you know, a prime example was I had a golf instructor come to me, and he created this lovely looking website, lots of lovely pictures, lots of lovely content, and he wanted to be found for golf lessons, golf school, and golf tutor, right? And none of those words were anywhere on his 5-page website. So Google would never have found him organically because he didn't use the words that people were searching for, right? So it's really important to understand which keywords are relevant to your customers when they are looking for your service. And the workbook that we will be sending you next week will have individualized keyword research for each of you. So there'll be a very different workbook for you next week, but next week's work will be about the keyword specifically. So when you've kind of got pay-per-click advertising, what you've got is you've got the keywords that you're advertising on, and that kind of relates to the searches that people are doing. Then you have to kind of write a relevant advert that relates to the keyword kind of as closely as possible, which gives it a high relevance. And then the URL wants to kind of mirror that as well, right? So a prime example is that for this customer, with his guaranteed rent keyword that he wants to appear for, the keyword that we're advertising on will be guaranteed rent. The advert will talk about guaranteed rent. The URL of the page will have guaranteed rent in it as well. And then the landing page that we land on has to talk about guaranteed rent, right? And you're merging all of these things together, right? And the way that Google Ad works is it doesn't just put your ranking at the top of the page just for bidding the highest. It wants to show the most relevant things at the top. So Google will kind of give you a quality score of, does the advert match the keyword? Is the landing page any good? And are people clicking on the advert? Are they voting with it? If those three things happen, then Google gives you a high quality score, right? So if we can get a quality score, say 10 out of 10, we get a really high quality score, that means that we will get higher positions higher on Google, and it will cost us less for the advertising. The best way that I can kind of explain this as an example is we were running some advertising for a local driving instructor over in Enfield. We were paying about 50p per click, and we were getting him to the top of Google, right? And he had a reasonably high quality score, on average about 7 out of 10, right? I had another driving instructor come into me who was running his own paid advertising, and he was like, I'm really struggling, my quality score is really low, and I'm having to pay £2.50 to try and get onto the first page of Google. So he was paying 5 times the amount of money as my customer was, right? We had a look at his adverts and his company and his website. His website was called Harley School of Motoring, right? Now, even though he did driving lessons, instantly when you looked at the advert, because it said Harley School of Motoring, it made you think that it was about shiny big motorbikes. So his click-through rate went through the floor because nobody was clicking on it, because they didn't want a motorbike lesson, they wanted a car driving lesson. So therefore his quality score plummeted and his costs went through the roof. So it's really important that you work on the keyword matching, the advert matching, the landing page, and then that you can make sure that you get people voting with their feet. People don't want bad adverts appearing at the top of Google, so they make it more expensive for bad adverts. Okay, so how this relates, and this is kind of very similar for search engine optimization. So what you would do to try and make a landing page relevant for a keyword for paid advertising and get a high quality score within your paid ads is very similar as to what you would do for search engine optimization. So the two processes kind of go hand in hand, right? So if I've created a page for guaranteed rent, the content needs to be about guaranteed rent, and I need to look at how to build my reputation, because if that is a very competitive keyword, ideally I want inbound links to my website from reputable places which lend me some of their credibility, right? And that's how you build your kind of reputation. So on search engine optimization terms, it's called link building. But in the good old days, you could send £100 to India, they would create 100 links with terrible typos in it, but you would be at the top of Google instantly, right? Google have kind of learned to filter out those kind of link farms. So you have to do it in a very organic way. And the best way to do it is create such high quality content that other people link to your website organically, and it happens kind of automatically. When you then get a high page rank, you will also get a high ranking on the search engines for those keywords. So it comes back to, at the center of all of this, the keyword. Understanding the keyword that you want to be found for should drive the content that you add on your pages. It should drive the adverts that you write, and the links that you generate back going to your website, because it will help your paid advertising and your search engine optimization and everything else. So the way that you should kind of do this, and this is kind of a common misconception that we get when people come to us for a website, is that they might have 20 different services that they provide, but they just have one landing page which lists the 20 different services, and they expect that one page to perform highly on the paid rankings, converting people, and to be at the top of Google, and it is just not going to happen, right? So what you would want to do is you create one page that might service a group of keywords together, right? So a group of keywords would be keywords that are very similar, right? So one example would be, if I use you as an example, Crystal, is that your website has kind of one for depression, and it might be, the keyword group might be depression counselor, depression therapist, you know, and everything relating to that one landing page, but they're all very similar. Now, that would be kind of the best way to do it, that you kind of get all of those keywords in one group together and they all land at one page. That way you get a higher quality score, better pay-per-click, and a higher ad rank and better search engine optimization. Okay. So the question is, what are your keywords, right? So you know, some of you may know this already and some of you may not, right? But for next week, we are going to create kind of customized reports for each of you. So this is, I want you to kind of take kind of a couple of minutes in the chat. If you can put what you think your keywords are in the chat. When I download this from the end of the day, I will take the chat report and I'll create the keyword report from that chat. So if you can kind of put what you feel the keywords are in there, and if any of you got questions, fire away. We've got a couple of minutes while you're working on that.
Can I ask, I missed it, I think my internet froze a bit, but you know, with links, having links on your website, can you just remind me again or talk me through how having links to other websites on your website helps your SEO?
Well, the only outbound links which really help you would be links to kind of related governing bodies, right? Because they're kind of authority places or associations, right? Outbound links don't necessarily help. But in your case, Crystal, one of the processes that we're going through for you just to create more content with more keywords is we are copying other people's blog posts onto yours, right? And because we're copying other people's content so that they don't get upset about that process, we do a link back to their website, which means that you are lending them some of your credibility, right? So in reality is that there's like this two-way process going on. One, you're using their content and not having to write it yourself. And in return, you're lending them a piece of credibility, which says that piece of content was good. And I'm going to read. I'm going to link.
Yeah, but it's also it's actually saying on there this is written by such and such. It's not claiming it as our own, though, is it?
No, you need
no,
you definitely need to
yeah. So okay, so from my perspective or other counsellors, it would be that linking to other pages isn't necessarily helpful, but if you're linking to the governing bodies, it is. Is that because those governing bodies have
it's just because it creates Google see that governing body as kind of the association. So actually an inbound link to that helps your SEO a little bit as well. Okay. So definitely if you've got an accreditations page, you should put a detail on that page and then at some point on that page link to the accrediting body as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm seeing some of you putting in here. Ellie's put copywriting, Andre's put home styling, social media management. Martin's put floor sanding and floor restoration. Is that parquet flooring as well, Martin, on yours?
Yes, parquet, yeah. So as someone who doesn't understand flooring, if you lifted up your carpet and saw some parquet flooring there, what would the instant word or keyword come in your head be? Restoration or sanding?
Yeah, it is floor restoration, floor sanding. I've done it for another customer, so I know exactly what the keywords are, Martin.
Okay, brilliant.
And I've got an actual camera up there, which is a time-lapse camera, and it's the best converting tool for when you're redoing parquet flooring.
Oh, really?
If you put a time-lapse camera in, it makes the content compelling. People stay on the website; they believe what you're doing. So
yeah, I've just got purchased a time-lapse camera, so that's my next thing.
It's a Brino one. It's the perfect camera for the job.
Right.
I'll show it to you later.
Okay, thank you.
Christopher's put back to work, employment, career, jobs, job search, job hunting. Some of those are probably a little bit generic, Christopher. Job as a word. Okay, excellent. Thank you, guys. I will use that to kind of create your worksheet for next week. Thank you. So just to kind of compare Google and Facebook, this is probably a few months old, this, but Google's reach, Google gets 3.5 billion searches per day. So it is absolutely ginormous, right? If we're doing paid advertising on Google, the cost per click is between £1.25 and £5.24 on average. That is not kind of the definitive final answer. I've got some clients who are managing to get their paid advertising for 10 pence a click, and they're doing a fantastic job within their content and their quality score, which is allowing that. And I've got some clients who are advertising on insurance or mortgage terms, and it's costing £35 a click. So there are extremes in there, but this is kind of the average. For conversion rates, even though there is a high intent, people will look at 12 to 13 websites before they make a purchasing decision. So a conversion rate, a kind of average conversion rate, if you look at all of my accounts that I run for clients, is about 3.75%. And that's either inquiries or purchases, depending on what you're measuring. And the average cost per conversion is about £40 per conversion. Facebook, on the other hand, has 1.4 billion daily active users. The advertising cost is a little bit cheaper per click. And because you can be very, very targeted on where you're targeting stuff, we're getting higher conversion rates, right? Which is leading to a lower cost per conversion. Now, not all of those are purchases. A lot of those are, more of those are inquiries. So whether they convert to the same level of customer is not always guaranteed, but it requires some really heavy targeting to get conversion rates of this high. And that, back to our week one, understanding that avatar and who you're actually targeting. Okay. So onto Facebook. Facebook, you know, it's absolutely massive. Facebook brought out Facebook ads. Now you can do Facebook Live, which is really massive as well. There are lots of people that are using Facebook Live alongside kind of streaming live on YouTube and Instagram, which is also massive. And it depends who your target audience is as to which the best platform is. When you start running Google Ads, you get the opportunity to run your ads across Instagram at the same time. Facebook also now own WhatsApp, but they've yet to kind of work out how to monetize that yet. But watch this space, it will be coming soon. Interestingly, Apple have kind of fallen out with Facebook recently, and the latest iOS update on Apple iPhones has got greater security features in there, which has actually locked out a lot of the features in Facebook advertising. You're smiling, Ellie. Care to comment, Ellie? Is that causing you troubles? No. Okay.
No, I just it's nice to think you're not being spied on as much.
Yeah. So within Facebook advertising, it's more about organic posts, putting your content out there to kind of build brand awareness, to grow your audience of people you can communicate with, and really to promote innovative products. I mean, this is a prime example of a company that we helped walk through some of their processes at the start of lockdown 1. And they're a catering company. So they were doing parties, they were doing weddings, and lockdown happened. And obviously their company was on their knees instantly. They flipped very quickly from doing parties to actually delivering paellas and delivering meals at home. So, you know, for my parents' wedding anniversary, they had a 3-course meal turn up as my present to them, which one meant I didn't have to do anything, and 2, they didn't have to cook. It was like double bubble. It's brilliant. We also ordered one of the paellas, which kind of came round. This customer has kind of flipped their business using Facebook, and their turnover has increased. They only work 2 days a week because they do just Fridays and Saturdays, and actually they haven't got to deal with kind of irate customers who are stressing about their party or their wedding. So they've kind of turned around and gone, man, why didn't we do this before? Because this is much easier, right? So by using Facebook, you can kind of flip your business quite easily. And because they were targeting just quite a localized area, it was quite easy to do with just organic posts. And then they kind of came back to us and requested, even though they came back to us and requested a Google review. And you can see that now they've got 81 Google reviews of 5 stars, and they're getting an enormous amount of traffic. And it's that combination of Facebook and Google My Business, which is the Google Maps listing, which is giving her that localized traffic. So using both has kind of really helped her, right? Here is another kind of use of kind of social media, which has kind of helped a lot of local companies kind of in lockdown number 1. And you remember when all of the nurseries were closed and nurseries were kind of on their knees because they had all of this stock and summer was there and everybody was gardening, but nobody could go and buy the stuff. So this was a local nursery just around the corner from us, and all they did was ask for help. They went onto Facebook and they asked the local community, what can you do? We've got all of this stuff. We're about to, you know, go out of business. Who wants to buy this stuff? And every time they made a delivery to a client's house, they took a picture of the delivery and they posted it and put the street name and, you know, the area, so that anytime anybody went online, they saw what their neighbors were up to, people were liking it, and they asked for reviews. Just that whole process kept this nursery busy during that lockdown. So it's a quick way to kind of rally the troops and get your message out there. So this is kind of a formula of a suggested content to be putting out there, right? When you're doing organic posting, nobody likes to see just continuous sales messages. If you are just selling all the time, people will stop listening to you and they will just block your communications. So what you do not want to do is sell all the time. Ideally, you want to do a 411, 4 reposts of other people's stuff. And that can be quotes, news, have you seen, how to's. Now, what you want to be careful of is who you are reposting. You don't really want to be reposting your competitors' stuff, because you don't want to lead your customers to your competitors, right? But you want to be reposting governing bodies. You want to be reposting, you know, suppliers, maybe if they're just supplying things that relate to what you're doing. You want to be reposting information, right? Then you want to be doing your own original content, right? And that can be news. Got a new member of the team, got this exciting new product, got this infographic of, you know, this is information. Here's a top 5 of things that you should not do with your CRM type of thing, right? And then one of those 6 messages can be a sale or promotion message. And that means that you're not just selling. You're trying to kind of create a dialogue and a communication with your clients. Okay. Then is a case of understanding hashtags, and hashtags are like the keywords of social media, right? So the quickest way to do that, there are some tools out there which you can do to kind of try and generate hashtags, but we find that the quickest way is just to go and look at some of your competitors and look at the hashtags that they are using, and just kind of list those out. It seems to be the quickest way that we've found to kind of generate interesting hashtags. You just go and look at your competitors, see what they're using, follow some of those hashtags around, because they'll give you new ideas. So what are your hashtags? So if you're putting out social media posts, what would you put a hashtag on it? If you can, this is also going to help me with my keyword research on Google as well, because you might come up with slightly different things. That is, so if you could spend a minute putting into the chat what your hashtags would be, if you know them. If you've got any questions, please let me know.
Brad, do you the click return manage?
Yes. Yes, we do, Crystal.
Sorry, I froze and my internet's been a bit intermittent the last few days. Do you manage people's social media accounts for them, like Facebook?
Yes, if
and
that
ads
is what
and
they
stuff
want.
like that?
So yeah, I mean, we can do it on several levels, because we've got some clients who want some input but don't have time to research stuff and generate stuff. So I've got some clients. So if I come back to this bit, I've got some clients who don't have any time to do this bit, right?
Yeah.
But because they're the font of all knowledge within everything within their company, either they generate this section or we interview them and generate it for them, right? And then the sales message, we can because we do the website and the advertising, we do the sales message. So I've got some customers where we do the whole thing. I've got some customers where we just do parts of this. It depends on what
You
customer
can
wants
do it all the
to
way through
relink
to
with.
So can you do it all the way through to Facebook ads as well, managing Facebook
Yes.
ad accounts? Is that?
Yeah, and the benefit of what you've got within Facebook, and I think it comes up in a slide in a minute, is the targeting, right? Because if you can get people to your website or your Facebook and get likes from people who are in your audience, Google and Facebook know so much about those people that they create a lookalike audience. So it becomes very powerful when you get to that level. Okay, so some of you kind of put some hashtags in. Martin's put products, building name, floor restoration. Hash products, I'm presuming, would be a specific flooring type, Martin.
Yes. What it is, we've done the Tower Bridge walkway twice now, and we used a different company products 11 years ago, 10 years ago, and as a company we didn't get mentioned, and the job was plastered all over their marketing and entrance lobby and everything else. So this time we used a different product, different company, and I went direct to them today actually, and I've just done a deal with them.
Excellent.
Using their products. So
good. Rachel's put leadership development, communication, customer loyalty, training solutions, e-learning. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, guys. That's really going to help with what I've got to do. Excellent. Right. Okay, I'm going to carry on. So kind of just coming back to kind of some of your question, which kind of leads on to the question from Crystal is, what can you do Facebook ads wise? The simplest thing that you can do is boost your post, right? You create your post in a normal fashion and you can just chuck a few quid at it to try and get it out to a bigger audience. The targeting on it is not very targeted, so it's a bit vague, but it's easy to do, right? So that is the cheapest, lowest denominator of kind of getting your content out there to a wider audience. But at the same time, it's not very controlled, right?
Who are the wider audience, Bradley?
What's that, sorry?
Who are the wider audience? I mean, you say it's not very targeted, but how does it happen at all?
Well, Facebook will understand who are the people that kind of are in your location. They'll understand the people that are liking your stuff already, and it will kind of try and push it out to people that are interested. But because you're not so much in control of that, it's not as targeted as it can be, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'll come to it next, right?
Okay.
This is kind of where it kind of becomes really powerful. So a prime example is you can install a pixel into your website, right? So that when somebody arrives on your website, Facebook understands who has been at your website pages, right? Now that means that Facebook can then actually understand not only the people that have interacted with your Facebook listings and your Facebook page, and the people that are following you, but they will actually then also understand who has committed more time and actually clicked and gone through to your website, right? Once once Facebook understands who has been at your website, you can then follow them on Facebook, right? And this is where it becomes really powerful, because that person has already shown interest. So by following them with adverts, you can almost catch the people that would have got away the first time. If your conversion rate is only going to be, you know, kind of 3% on your website, that's 97% of the website visitors which are going to go away without buying something. And it's quick, it's much cheaper and much more targeted to follow those people that have already shown an interest than to pay to get the next person to your website, right? So using that pixel gets somebody back to your website, and that is a much more targeted way to get your audience advertising to a larger audience, right? And this is kind of now taking that to the next level. Once Facebook has the information of who likes your Facebook page and who has interacted with your posts on Facebook, and the people that have interacted with your web page via the Facebook pixel, Facebook then have an understanding of who your customer is and builds up a customer profile, right? Facebook can then create you a lookalike audience of loads of customers that have the same profile, which you can then target your adverts to, right? And that is what is much more targeted than just the standard boost of a post.
Okay,
you
so
can-
when you do the pixel thing, that
Yeah.
enables these boosted posts to be much more targeted. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because you're layering up information, which is people that like your page, people that interact with your Facebook posts, and people that go to your website, which gives you a much larger profile of the customer profile. And then Facebook can create you a lookalike audience, which
Okay.
means you're not restricted to just those people. You can get to a much larger audience, but they are people that Facebook feel are going to be correct for you. And within Facebook, you have a sliding scale of how close to your original profile you want to be. So if I just do a 1% lookalike audience, I know that they're going to be very close in their profile, and my conversion rate will be higher. Whereas actually, if I need to get to a larger audience because I want to sell more products, I can switch that up to kind of a 3-4% lookalike audience. It will give me a much greater audience, but the strictness of how close that person is to my original avatar gets a little bit fuzzier, gets a bit loose around the edges. So the conversion rate will decrease because the audience is bigger and it's not quite close to my original audience.
And so the price goes up or down?
Well, the price goes up because you're getting to a much bigger audience.
But
so
even though the conversion, okay.
The cost is not essentially more per click, but
Yeah.
if your conversion rate is less, then your cost per conversion will be higher. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of covers Facebook. And Facebook is, you know, mainly B2C, even though there are lots of businesses on there, and businesses do very well. The majority of the people that are selling on there and kind of interacting with people are B2C. Whereas if you are B2B, like you, Ed, and this relates to the conversation that we had earlier, is that you can be very targeted in how you target the companies that you want within LinkedIn. So I'm not going to go into LinkedIn in too much detail because we're going to run out of time. But LinkedIn, because you want people with 30 seats, Ed, as your target market, you can, within your LinkedIn targeting, just target people that have got 30 employees at least. So you can be very targeted in there. We're getting to the end of the hour, so I need to stop talking soon. So there, Facebook can take a lot of time, and I think one of the things that people struggle with is that Facebook, you can get distracted by a cat playing a piano or anything like that, and you can lose an hour quite easily. So there are lots of tools out there which will help you stay focused to get your social media posts done. One is Buffer, one is Hootsuite, I've just actually started switching from Buffer to Zoho because Zoho does it as well. But what these will do is they will help you do research to find other posts to redo. So you can kind of do listening, and you can schedule posts across multiple channels, schedule them at times when you feel that you're not going to be in front of your computer to post them. And you can then analyze your effectiveness. And instead of you having to do it all yourself, you can work as a team. So you can have multiple team members creating posts in advance, and then submitting it to people to, so if you've got a team member who creates a week's worth of posts, they can submit those for your approval before they get sent out. So it's a way for you to kind of manage multiple channels quicker and spend less time doing it. So these tools are awesome, and they will save you an enormous amount of time doing your social media stuff.
Bradley, sorry, do you have a favourite personally?
I have used Hootsuite with clients in the past. I like Buffer,
Yeah.
and I'm just in the process of, I'm like 3 weeks into using Zoho Social, which is proving cheaper and efficient. I just need to double check the reach, because the statistics in there are not quite as efficient as Buffer and Hootsuite. But then I've got other tools that I can use for my analytics.
Called
For
Zoho.
me,
It's Zoho.
Zoho CRM, yeah. Wave again, Ed. Speak to Ed. I'll put Ed's details in the chat. Yeah, Zoho Social. So then email marketing. So really you can do email marketing, and email marketing is very cheap to kind of get your stuff out to your customers. But really, if you can segment your customers as to what they want, then you can change the message that you put out. So if they have come in with a strong message, right, then you can actually send them an email which has a higher kind of call to action, as in buy now. I mean, you can put all the same as your website, you can put your 3 call to actions on there, which would be the soft call to action, the medium, and the high intent. But actually what you want to do is you want to push people along kind of an email marketing funnel, which says, if they've already bought, we want to retain them and get them to buy again. If they've attended the webinar, we want to send them down a sales funnel because we want them to buy. If they've just downloaded the PDF, then they're probably not ready to buy straight away. You need to send out multiple emails which build up your reputation with case studies, how to, don't do this, do that, 10 best things to do here. You build your relationship instead of just go in with a hard sell straight away. So depending on what somebody has done on your website, on your original call to action, depends on what emails you should send them going forwards. And that email marketing, back to knowing your avatar, it needs to be perfectly aligned with all of your marketing. So your advert will be, say, get our guide, and then your each email that you send should be formatted to match your avatar so that they feel at home and they know what you're talking about. So if they've searched for a specific keyword and arrived at your website about one product, don't send them emails about a different product or a different service, because they won't be interested. They will unsubscribe. Right. Whew. Talk myself hoarse. Any questions? I'm sure there are questions because I've covered a lot.
Can I have a question about Facebook? I understand that Facebook has its own algorithm, and I'm not talking ads here. You can do posts and they choose how many people it actually goes out to in your following group. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty that you've got with Facebook is that if it's not at the top of, if somebody doesn't log in all the time, and some people don't, some people do, then it automatically slips down their feed. So even though it's gone out to the people that are following you and like your company, they might not see it because it's just at a time of day where it's slipped past their consciousness, and they're not going to scroll down and see it if if they've logged in and it was 6 hours ago, right? In that case, reposting old stuff is acceptable, and you can do that at different times and at different times of the day and different models. I mean, you don't want to be putting the same thing out all of the time, but actually, you know, we've had some clients where the same post that we put out 6 months ago, we put out the same thing again this time, just at a different time of day, and it had a much greater reach and actually created some traffic to the website and some inquiries. So the key is, when you're looking for content, just because you've already talked about it, don't presume that everybody's seen it. And if they have seen it, don't presume they're going to remember. So you can repost stuff. But yes, Facebook will control who sees what, but it also depends on what time, who's in your audience, and how they're connected to you and what they're searching for. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No.
Thanks, Ben. Bradley, I'll have to go on to my next meeting. So thanks very much
No
for this
problem.
afternoon.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay, cheers.
So I'm going to stop the recording now, guys.
Yes, thanks very much, Brad.
Next
Thank
week.
you. Thanks a lot.